Welcome to the Losses American Today channel. We're going to portray the famous people who died this month. Mitzi Gaynor dies. Dancing star of South Pacific and Las Vegas stage, was 93. Mitzi Gaynor, the actor, singer and dancer who starred in such 1950s Hollywood musicals as South Pacific and There's No Business Like Show Business before going on to conquer the Las Vegas stage and TV variety specials, has died, her management team announced today. She was 93. As we celebrate her legacy, we offer our thanks to her friends and fans and the countless audiences she entertained throughout her long life, Renee Reyes and Shane Rosaminder of Gaynor's MGMT team said today in the statement announcing her death. See the entire statement below. The statement added, "We take great comfort in the fact that her creative legacy will endure through her many magical performances captured on film and video, through her recordings and especially through the love and support audiences around the world have shared so generously with her throughout her life and career. Please keep Mitzi in your thoughts and prayers." Born Francesca Marlene Desarnais von Gerber in Chicago on September 4, 1931, Gaynor had grown to national fame by the early 1950s as the star of Hollywood's new wave of musicals such as There's No Business Like Show Business, 1954, Anything Goes, 1956, with Bing Crosby and Donald O'Connor, and Les Girls, 1957, with Gene Kelly. The same year as Les Girls, Gaynor was cast in one of her most memorable roles as the girlfriend of nightclub comedian Joe E. Lewis, played by Frank Sinatra, in The Joker is Wild. But her signature role came in 1958 when she was cast as Nellie Forbush in the screen version of Rodgers and Hammerstein's South Pacific. In her Golden Globe-nominated performance, Gaynor was treated with one of the musical's most popular musical numbers, "I'm Gonna Wash That Man Right Outta My Hair." By the end of the decade, Gaynor had also made inroads into TV variety shows, and by 1968 she was starring in her first NBC special called, simply, Mitzi. Gaynor and her show was so popular that she became a TV fixture in the 1970s, headlining annual variety specials on CBS from 1973 to 1978. Gaynor made many guest appearances on other variety shows, perhaps most notable on the February 16, 1964, episode of The Ed Sullivan Show, which also happened to feature the second appearance of the Beatles. During the episode, Gaynor, like the Beatles, performed from the stage of the Deauville Hotel in Miami Beach. Her 9-minute segment including her memorable performance of Cole Porter's Too Darn Hot. In addition to her TV career, Gaynor was an immensely popular nightclub and Vegas performer. Her Vegas breakthrough came in 1961 with her show at the Flamingo Hotel, which reportedly broke box office records and reportedly made Gaynor the city's highest-paid female entertainer. She would remain a Vegas nightclub and touring performer for most of the rest of her life, with her later career including a 2008 to 2011 tour called Mitzi Razzle Dazzle: My Life Behind the Sequins. In 2008, the PBS documentary Mitzi Gaynor Razzle Dazzle: The Special Years highlighted her TV variety show specials. Gaynor married Jack Bean, the man who would be her husband and manager until his death in 2006. The couple did not have children. Information on survivors was not immediately available. Sherry Coben, a daytime Emmy-winning writer-producer best known for creating Kate and Allie, died October 16 of cancer at her home in New Milford, NJ. She was 71. Coben was the mastermind behind the Emmy-winning comedy that starred Jane Curtin and Susan Street. James. Shot in the Ed Sullivan Theater, Kate and Allie quickly became a top 10 hit and ran for 6 seasons on CBS. Coben began her career in the art department at KYW-TV in Philadelphia, doing graphics, sets, illustrations and animation for all their local programming and The Mike Douglas Show. After moving to New York City and working freelance as an artist for a wide range of television shows and magazines, she got her break in writing on the beloved NBC children's program Hot Hero Sandwich, for which she received a Daytime Emmy. She went on to write for the ABC soap opera Ryan's Hope in 1980 before creating the hit CBS sitcom 4 years later. It lasted until 1989, airing 122 episodes. Coben also was a writer-producer on the Saturday morning CBS series Bailey Kipper's POV, and creator-writer of the web series Little Women, Big Cars. In addition to her work as a writer-producer, Coben was a proud mentor and active volunteer in service of the next generation of high-caliber writers, performers, artists and human beings. She is survived by her husband, film editor Patrick McMahon, and daughters Kaylee McMahon and Jammer McMahon. Liam Payne dies. Former One Direction singer was 31. Liam Payne, a founding member of the popular British-Irish boy band One Direction, died Wednesday in Buenos Aires, Argentina, after falling off a balcony from the hotel's third floor. He was 31. La Nation reports that before the incident, police were called by Hotel Casa Sur staff to report an aggressive man that could have been under the influence of drugs or alcohol. We were alerted about a person who was in an internal courtyard of Casa Sur Hotel. First responders arrived and confirmed the man's death. We later learned that he was a singer in a musical group. Unfortunately, he had injuries incompatible with life as a result of his fall, so we had to confirm his death. There was no possibility of resuscitation, Alberto Crescenti, head of the state emergency medical system, said. Although they were going to await an autopsy report, Crescenti noted that Payne apparently had a skull fracture, a very serious injury. Payne rose to fame as part of One Direction, the pop group formed by Simon Cowell on the X Factor UK Season 7 in 2010 that also featured Harry Styles, Niall Horan, Louis Tomlinson and Zayn Malik. The group released 5 studio albums from 2011 to 15, all of which went platinum in the US. And hit No. 1 or No. 2 stateside and in the UK and were top 10 around the world. It scored 4 number 1 singles in Great Britain, debut, What Makes You Beautiful, Little Things, One Way or Another, Teenage Kicks, whose video Payne directed, and Drag Me Down. 5 others reached number 2 in the country as One Direction became one of the top-selling boy bands ever. One Direction saw less chart dominance in the US, but had a half-dozen top 10 singles and 7 million sellers stateside. 3 other singles went gold in America. The band was featured in the 2013 documentary One Direction, This Is Us, which was billed as intimate all-access look at life on the road for the global music phenomenon. Released by Sony Pictures, it looked at its meteoric rise to fame from humble hometown beginnings to the X Factor to conquering the world and performing at London's famed O2 Arena. This Is Us grossed more than $68 million worldwide. One Direction also had 2 platinum-selling long-form videos in the US. With Up All Night, the live tour, 2012, which got a brief overseas theatrical release, and Where We Are, live in San Remo, 2014. Alvin Rakoff dies. Veteran Canadian filmmaker was 97. Judi Dench and Stephen Fry shared tributes. Alvin Rakoff, the veteran Canadian filmmaker best known for picks like the 1982 feature A Voyage Round My Father starring Laurence Olivier, died in Chiswick, London, October 12, surrounded by his family. He was 97. Rakoff's former personal agent confirmed the news with Deadline this morning. Born on February 6, 1927, in Toronto, Rakoff was the third of 7 children. After graduating from the University of Toronto with a psychology degree, Rakoff spent time as a news reporter. His first job as a writer was with the Canadian Broadcasting Company, CBC, which later sponsored Rakoff to visit the UK. Within days of arriving, he sold his first fiction script to the BBC. He was soon invited to join the BBC's director's training course and, the following year at the age of 26, Rakoff became the youngest producer, director in the BBC drama department. As Rakoff once recalled, I trained at the BBC as a director-producer. In those days, the 2 roles were combined. And the BBC insisted that trainees be knowledgeable in all forms of television. I worked on horse shows, cricket matches, variety, stand-up, big bands, small bands. Perhaps that's why it seemed logical in later productions to use different techniques. Waiting for Gillian, 1954, was one of Rakoff's first productions. It was a play that had failed on the stage but drew acclaim on TV. The adaptation later won a National Television Award for Best Play and transferred to Paris where it was performed live in French. Rakoff won his first Emmy Award for Call Me Daddy, 1967, starring Donald Pleasence and Judy Cornwell. The production later transferred to the big screen where it was retitled Hoffman, 1970, and starred Peter Sellers and Sinead Cusack. Rakoff, however, is perhaps best known for the 1982 drama A Voyage Round My Father, which starred Laurence Olivier. Written by John Mortimer and co-starring Alan Bates and Jane Asher, the pick won Rakoff his second Emmy. Rakoff and Olivier later collaborated on 2 further projects, Mr. Halpern and Mr. Johnson and A Talent for Murder. Over the years, Rakoff worked with performers such as Peter Cushing, Denham Elliott, Julian Fellows, Henry Fonda, Edward Fox, Michael Gambon, Ava Gardner, John Gielgud, Elliot Gould, Richard Harris, Michael Hordern, Trevor Howard, Celia Johnson, George Kennedy, Angela Lansbury, Patrick McGoohan, Roger Moore, Stephen Rea. Daniel Ho dies. Station 19 Feet producer was 45. Daniel Dan Ho, a physician who wrote for ABC's Station 19, died October 11. He was 45. Ho's passing was confirmed by his manager Rob Golenberg. Ho joined the CBS Diversity Writing Program and in 2016 secured his first staffing job on the network's Pure Genius from Jason Katims and Sarah Watson. In 2020, he joined ABC's Station 19, where he rose to the title of producer in its final season. Born and raised in Potomac, Maryland, Ho spent time with the FBI before attending medical school at Vanderbilt University in Nashville, Tennessee. Though he thrived in medicine, he always tried to nurture his creative side and ended up transitioning to journalism by becoming a TV reporter in rural Kentucky. Driven by a passion for people and social justice, Ho embarked on global humanitarian missions. A trip to Mexico City with El Pozo de Villa sparked his activism against human trafficking. He and his wife, Deborah, also campaigned for international human rights. Ho's resilience was tested when he was diagnosed with multiple myeloma shortly after becoming a father. That's when he found renewed purpose in storytelling and began his work in TV. On days or weekends when he wasn't writing for Station 19, Ho served as an physician at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center, where his compassionate care touched patients from all walks of life. His medical expertise was matched by his unwavering empathy, making him a beloved figure among colleagues and patients alike. Ho is survived by his wife, Deborah, his son, Dylan, his parents, and a brother. Ho was not only a client, but a friend for many years to his manager, Golenberg, and his agent Cindy Mintz of the Kaplan-Stower Agency. Ethel Kennedy dies. Robert F. Kennedy's widow and human rights advocate was 96. Ethel Kennedy, the widow of Attorney General and New York Sen. Robert F. Kennedy, died Thursday of stroke complications. A political force unto herself, the sister-in-law of President John F. Kennedy and mother of 11 children, was 96. The family revealed on October 8 that Ethel Kennedy had suffered a stroke in her sleep on October 3 at her Cape Cod home and had been taken to a hospital. Her daughter Kerry Kennedy announced the news on social media. Having survived her husband by 56 years, the family matriarch went on to form the Robert F. Kennedy Center for Justice and Human Rights in the months following the then presidential candidate's assassination in 1968 in Los Angeles. Respected and beloved by generations of Americans, and many others around the world, Ethel Kennedy was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom by President Barack Obama in 2014. "You don't mess with Ethel," President Obama noted at the White House ceremony to laughter, adding on a more serious note that Kennedy's love of family is matched only by her devotion to her nation. Born on April 11, 1928 in Chicago, the daughter of Great Lakes Carbon Corporation co-founder and coal mogul George Skakel met the third eldest son of Joe and Rose Kennedy on a family skiing trip in Canada in 1945 via her college roommate and RFK sibling Gene Kennedy. At the time, Bobby, as his family and friends called RFK, was dating Ethel's sister Patricia. Soon after the two met, RFK was dating Ethel. While the couple waited 5 years to get engaged, they were married in less than 6 months on June 17, 1950, in Greenwich Court. Not long after that, as his older brother Jack moved into national politics, Bobby followed and moved his burgeoning family to Washington, D.C. An active participant in JFK's successful 1960 bid for the White House, Bobby's 1964 senatorial run, as well as other family campaigns, Ethel was a strong advocate for her husband seeking the Democratic nomination for president in 1968. More than 3 months pregnant at the time, Ethel was not with RFK celebrating his victory in the California primary on June 5, 1968, at the now demolished Ambassador Hotel in LA, when her husband was fatally shot. However, she was by his side in the hospital when the 42-year-old senator died from his wounds more than a day later. The Kennedy family has been portrayed in countless films, TV series and stage performances. Nicholas Pryor dies. Soap veteran and risky business actor who recurred on Beverly Hills 90,210 Feet was 89. Nicholas Pryor, whose nearly 7-decade acting career included hundreds of episodes of soap operas, playing Tom Cruise's dad in Risky Business and Kathleen Robertson's dad on Beverly Hills 90,210, died October 7. He was 89. Fellow actor John Lindstrom announced the news on social media, saying in part, "Nick was an actor's actor, and an exceptional friend. He was a mentor, a sounding board, a trusted confidant, and even a father figure beyond, yes, playing my own father on #GH and #PortCharles. See his full post below. Born Nicholas Probst on January 28, 1935, in Baltimore, Pryor racked up nearly 175 screen credits and half-dozen more on Broadway. After getting his screen start guesting on such 1950s and early 60s TV series as Alfred Hitchcock Presents and The Doctors, he played Tom Baxter in more than 75 episodes of the NBC daytime drama Another World. That led to a starring role on The Nurses, a 1965-67 continuation of CBS' The Nurses, which had ended in 1965. He then was cast in a starring role on the first season of CBS' Suds a Love is a Many Splendid Thing and later had guest shots daytime soaps All My Children and The Edge of Night. Pryor did some big screen work in the mid-1970s including car race romp The Gumball Rally along with TV miniseries at the height of their heyday, including The Addams Chronicles and Washington, Behind Closed Doors. He had a small but memorable role in the 1980 comedy classic Airplane. As Mr. Hammond, a soon repentant eater of the fish plate, complete with airsickness bag and amplified hurling sound effect. By the early 80s, Pryor was a regular TV guest star, appearing on such popular shows as MASH, 8 is Enough, Little House on the Prairie, Silver Spoons, Falcon Crest, Street. Elsewhere, Knight Rider moonlighting and Who's the Boss. His first regular TV role came in NBC's drama The Bronx Zoo, starring as a decent but often insufferable high school vice principal opposite his boss, Ed Asner, whose job he coveted. It lasted one season in 1987-88. During that decade, Pryor continued to land film roles, including as Cruise's dad in the future A-listers' breakout 1983 pick Risky Business and in The Falcon and the Snowman, starring Timothy Hutton and Sean Penn. Pryor continued to work steadily in film and TV during the 1990s, landing a recurring role as Chancellor Milton Arnold on Fox's primetime hit Beverly. Cissy Houston dies, legendary gospel singer, backup for Elvis, Aretha, Bette and Jimmy, mother of Whitney, was 91. Cissy Houston, the two-time Grammy-winning gospel singer, mother of the late Whitney Houston and backup singer for acts ranging from Elvis Presley and Aretha Franklin to Jimi Hendrix, Paul Simon and Luther Vandross, died today of Alzheimer's disease complications at her home in New Jersey. She was 91. Her death was announced by her family. In our time of deep sorrow, we announce the passing of Emily, Cissy, Houston, who transitioned today, Monday, October 7th, at 10:30 a.m. ET, at her home in Newark, New Jersey, while under hospice care for Alzheimer's disease, said the family's statement, obtained by Deadline. Houston was born Emily Drinkard on September 30, 1933, in Newark. The youngest of 8 children, she launched her singing career in 1938 when she joined her sister Ann and brothers Larry and Nicky to form the gospel group The Drinkard Four. More famously, Houston was a member of the Sweet Inspirations, an R&B group that throughout the 1960s provided backup vocals for some of the most popular and celebrated musicians of the day, including Presley, Solomon Burke, Wilson Pickett and, in 1967, for Van Morrison, the Sweet Inspirations can be heard singing behind Morrison on his classic, Brown-Eyed Girl. Other prominent collaborations of the era include the Inspirations singing for Hendrix on his song, Burning of the Midnight Lamp, the Bee Gees on To Love Somebody, and behind Dusty Springfield on the 1969 album Dusty in Memphis and its classic single, Son of a Preacher Man, which is featured in Quentin Tarantino's Pulp Fiction. The Sweet Inspirations also recorded albums of their own, and in 1969 Houston struck out on her own, recording solo albums as well as doing session work as a backup singer for Bette Midler on 1972's The Divine Miss M. and Linda Ronstadt's 1975 chart-topper Hard Like a Wheel, among many others. In addition to her pop career, Houston was one of the foremost gospel singers of her generation, earning a Grammy in 1996 for her album Face to Face and a second Grammy in 1998 for her album He Leadeth Me. For more than a half-century, she was the minister of music at Newark's New Hope Baptist Church. Houston also frequently collaborated with her equally celebrated family members, including niece Dionne Warwick and, of course, daughter Whitney. One of those collaborations, 2006's Family First. Peter E. Strauss dies, veteran film exec, was 83. Peter E. Strauss, a veteran film executive, movie producer and pioneering entrepreneur, died October 6 at his home in Beverly Hills. He was 83. He was surrounded by his beloved wife of 46 years, Susan, and his son, Jonathan. Over a remarkable 5-decade career, Strauss left an indelible mark on the film industry. As executive vice president of Mandalay Pictures for the past 25 years, he oversaw the financing and distribution of numerous film and television projects including The Jacket and Air. He was instrumental in the growth of independent cinema, pioneering foreign sales and off-balance sheet financing for independent films. In 1998, Strauss was appointed president of Lionsgate Entertainment, a company he helped establish alongside Frank Giustra in 1997, overseeing its U.S. operations. During his tenure, Lionsgate rose to become a prominent force in independent film production and distribution. Previously, Strauss served as president, CEO and chairman of the International Movie Group, where he produced and executive-produced more than 30 films including the Best of the Best series, Buster with Phil Collins, and Cadence starring Charlie and Martin Sheen. Strauss began his film career at Allied Artists, eventually becoming executive vice president, shepherding films that included the 1973 Oscar Best Picture winner Cabaret, Papillon and The Man Who Would Be King. He went on to become executive vice president of Rastar Films, the production company of Ray Stark, where he oversaw the production of notable projects such as The Electric Horseman and The Villain. In the 1980s, he founded Panache Productions, producing titles including Dance of the Dwarfs and Thunder Run. Strauss was educated at Oberlin College, the London School of Economics and Columbia University School of Law. He was a member of the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, and was committed to philanthropy and mentorship throughout his life, inspiring and supporting young talent across the industry. Strauss is survived by his wife, the former Susan Rausnitz, his son, Jonathan, and daughter-in-law Elizabeth Westlake, grandchildren Teddy and Caroline, and many devoted friends and colleagues. A private graveside service was held October 8, and a celebration of his life will be announced at a later date.